Good morning. I'm very excited about this morning of First Things First, and I'm excited on a couple different fronts. Number one, because last night I actually put out a request for what you would like to hear, and some of my best students and best followers put questions. The most common question was actually about how to deal with stress and specifically perseverance under stress. Some of the other questions I also even relate into this lesson because somebody asked about the warrior mindset and somebody talked about breaking down barriers of traditionalism and traditional thought. And it's all relevant in some way. I'll tie it into this lesson. I'm excited too, though, because I think that this specific question is such an important part of the lessons that we teach at Krav Maga martial arts. I believe that of all the things that we develop on the path to black belt and in the black belt test, the ability to fight through and overcome stress and to deal with stress in a very positive way is one of the most important elements of our program. I'm going to address as much of this as I can in as succinct and disciplined a fashion as possible because if anything, the challenge with me answering this question is simply trying to get it all within the time that you'll give me to listen. So I want to start with one of my favorite sayings, and this saying has been actually attributed to many different people over the years because it's such a good one. I heard it first 20-something years ago, actually quoted from Albert Ellis, who was the founder of Rational Emotive Therapy. And that is, life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we react to what happens to us. Now, this is true. This is not a hypothesis. This is true, and you can tell yourself. You can tell yourself by looking at the times in your life that you have dealt with a problem well, or looking at the times in your life that you have dealt with a problem less well. You can tell that this is true by observing other people. Look at other people's life. Go to somebody that you consider successful, and ask them about the stress, about the trials and tribulations that they had to overcome in their life, and I guarantee that person's going to tell you many, many stories about things that they went through that would have stopped other people. The fact that you can take two siblings and one can succeed in exactly the same environment as the other one flounders is yet more evidence. But as we move on in this, because I want to use this analogy throughout the rest of the lesson, I want to especially use the black belt test or Krav Maga test in general. We have something that we call the stress test, and it's one of the most important parts of our physical Krav Maga. And in the stress test, while there's, I call it a distractor, in other words, the person's banging on a pad or sparring or doing some other thing that is their main focus, they're being attacked with various attacks that they're going to have to demonstrate their self-protection. The idea is that they're sufficiently fatigued and or distracted and or otherwise stressed that the correct response is only going to come out of them when they have done the said exercise sufficiently that it's become a natural part of their reaction. Now, by the time of the black belt test, students are able to do this quite well. And actually, even by the time of a yellow belt test, a student is able to do it within a very, very limited number of variables, chokes and some simple things that the student can do that will fly out of their body correctly. How does it tie to life? I would argue that it's exactly the same thing. When you're dealing with stress, whatever it is you're facing, if it's the first time you're facing it, you may or may not have the necessary preparation to deal with it in the best way. But if you remember in your mind that, you know what, this is just like other training. I'm training to be better. I'm gonna give my best. I'm gonna utilize the principles and the things that I've learned at this point in my life. I'm gonna keep positive mental attitude. I'm gonna also remember the lesson about failing forward, and I'm gonna bring all these things into putting my best into responding correctly in this situation. Then you'll find that at the best case, you'll respond correctly. And at the worst case, you'll be better prepared to deal with the same circumstance the next time. You see, in reality, this lesson is like so many others. They're all tied together, honestly, to a similar mindset. It is the warrior mindset that somebody else asked about. The warrior mindset is wherein whatever it is that we're faced with, we deal with it. And we deal with it the best that we know how, with no fear or anxiety about the outcome. And what ultimately happens, by the way, in Mushin no Mushin, mind of no mind, warrior mindset, is that you respond correctly without even having to think about it. The correct response just flows from you. It's what we consider mastery in this mindset. The point to this lesson is simply that whatever stresses you face, whatever you are going through, remember this. Remember, others have gone there before. Remember that you may or may not go there again. And remember that all you can do is deal with the situation the best way that you know how. And by doing so in a positive fashion, you produce the best possible outcome. the last thing that I'll actually say about this is that when you go through the stressful situation, you have to consider what is the worst possible thing that can happen. Even if it's a black belt test, because let me tell you something, these guys go through a lot and they feel like they're going to die in this test. But the worst possible, in the back of their mind, they know, man, I just got to get through this. What's the worst possible thing that can happen? Well, in life too, very, very often, if you just do this exercise, think, what's the worst possible thing that can come from this situation? Accept it. And think about the long-term effects and how am I going to be on the other side of this? And you may find that you're better equipped to deal than you first thought. You know, I got so much more I want to say about this. Maybe I'll have to do this lesson series over time. But I hope this has been helpful so far, and I hope you'll keep communicating with me. I'll see you tomorrow on First Things First.